Hello, I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director and Founder of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Accountants Minute podcast. Stand out with R&D Advisory Services, which is the key article in Accountants Minute edition 412, which you can locate on the ESS BIZTOOLS website, www.essbiztools.com.au. And if you would like to receive the editions as we complete them each week, you could register to become a regular receiver of ESS BIZTOOLS Accountants Minute, and we will send that directly to you. Stand out with advisory services. What's all that mean? Advisory services are very important, but research and development is one of the most important aspects, I think, of research and of the whole advisory question, because research and development opens up a whole range of value-added opportunities for accountants, business advisors, and bookkeepers who are interested in supplying these services to SME clients. And SMEs need this assistance because many of them don't know where to go and they worry about it. I think research and development is definitely a differentiating product within ESS BIZTOOLS. As far as I can determine, no other supplier of advisory services material, computer programs or whatever in Australia covers research and development. I don't know why, because it's a very important area. Thousands of SMEs every year undertake some research and development activities. But unfortunately, many of them have trouble getting advice. Why? Because far too many accountants don't seem interested in getting involved in research and development. Well, there's some warning signs coming, isn't there? We've got the now retired tax commissioner, nearly 3 years ago, gave a warning at Xerocom 2022 that within 3 years, up to 5 years, there would be a significant change in the workflow of accountants and I think bookkeepers servicing the SME market. That's because of a continual changing in the software being utilised by the tax office, the lodgement program. The ex-commissioner, who was a former partner of KPMG, obviously believes that quite a number of the SME clients will lodge the material themselves. What's that going to do to your firm when that happens? There was another warning given at an AI series of webinars presented about 2.5 months ago now, wherein Mark Weathersham, a former chartered accountant, sole practitioner in Sydney, indicated that he believed that the current compliance work will have completely disappeared before the end of this decade. The end of this decade, as you well know, is only 5 years away. What's that going to mean within your firm? AI is definitely starting to make some changes. I think we all need to become familiar with it. But what's R&D got to do with all this? Well, R&D is information that many of your clients or potential clients need. They need to know more about it. The problem is that people start doing research and development with no idea that they have to be a company to claim the tax benefit. So they might currently be a sole trader or a partnership. If they talk to you about it, I'm sure you can give them that advice, that they have to be a company. But they also have to spend $20,000 in the financial year that they make their claim. And it can be on more than one project. There's a requirement that they keep records. There's a requirement for them to do prior art searches. That's very quaint terminology, isn't it? And many SMEs have got no idea what that means, and they get worried. They can get help for that from a patent attorney or from some specialist consultancy firms. I don't expect too many accountants can do too much other than to assist them on searching on the internet. So who do your clients who are interested in research and development go to? Unfortunately, a significant number end up gravitating towards Big Four firms and top 100 firms, even though a significant number of SMEs don't like doing that. They're not comfortable going to Big Four firms. They're probably not comfortable coming and talking to me or you either, but at least they know that you're specialising in advising SMEs. So I think there's a wonderful opportunity for you to broaden the range of services you're offering to include research and development to supply SMEs. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, we definitely knew that this would be a point of differentiation when we wrote the material on research and development. It was a no-brainer for me. I've been involved in research and development activities for at least the last 30-odd years, probably a bit longer. I was a business advisor to a major Australian government program called COMET, Commercialising Emerging Technology. We had to find people who had undertaken innovative activities and then mentor and guide them to get them ready to be able to make investment presentations to potential investors, to introduce them to business angel groups, to take them to actual presentations at business angel groups so they could understand what they were going to have to do themselves, make a 10-minute presentation on their business, answer questions, be dressed appropriately, and have some backup material ready to go to anyone that was interested. Now, this is going the next stage after they've started on research and development, but that's important. They need to know there's an ongoing game. They haven't done all this training to play football and turn up and there's no goalposts or there's no field being marked. They can't play. They need to know what the ongoing is. And the ongoing is, from your point of view, is that many of these companies will require mentoring and training on the whole range of research and development. And before you start screaming, oh, we can't do research and development, as quite a number of accountants have politely and not so politely told me over the years. And I've said, why can't you advise clients on research and development? And they say, well, we're not an engineer or we're not a scientist. And I said, I've got a brother who's an engineer, very capable one. And I know there's a difference between engineers and accountants because my youngest brother is also an accountant. So the two of us used to gang up on our brother was an engineer. So there is a difference. I know they're very methodical and follow things through. So do accountants to some degree, don't we? And then the comment is, well, we should be a scientist. What's a scientist got to do with it? Or to undertake the research. But you're not undertaking the research, I would say to them. And I really want to say that to you. You're not undertaking the research. Your client is. And it is your client's responsibility to do that or to engage consultants. They could be university departments. They could be some of the specialised consultancy firms that exist around Australia to undertake the research. I see your role as more akin to being the internal auditor because there is a range of records got to be kept, which can be daily, weekly, monthly. Because if anyone has worked on the research and development project, there needs to be a document completed. We've designed them. We've got 46 forms in our research and development product package for you to use. I don't think you'll use 46 on any one client. No one's done that yet. But we've got the 46 there to cover all sorts of variables that can occur. And I suspect that if you had 10 or 12 R&D clients, and that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? That you might use all 46 forms with some of the variations that would occur. So the role, I think, is to make sure the client's completing the documents. I set up a program when I act for someone on research and development that I'm going to review it every month, not quite week in the first couple of weeks to make sure they're doing it properly. Because what you've got to remember is if the records are prepared properly and the information looks okay when you lodge the return with Oz Industry within 10 months of the end of the financial year, preferably a fair bit earlier, because there's a huge backlog occurs with Oz Industries around the 30th of April each year, which is 10 months after the 30th of June. And it takes some time because you won't be able to finalise the lodgement of the company's tax return until you get the all-important registration number back from Oz Industry, because you need to disclose that in the tax return. So it's best to make sure the lodgement's done preferably early January, so it gets into the system, you get the number. And if you've got a client that's trading at a loss, they'll be anxious for you to complete their annual accounts and complete the lodgements to Oz Industry as soon as possible after the 30th of June. Why? Because the government gave a commitment some years ago now that as long as everything was properly disclosed in the tax returns in which the applicable box had been ticked to say that your client would like a cash refund of the research and development incentive amount, that amount will be paid into the company's bank account within 30 days. That's great service from the tax office, isn't it? And your client probably needs that money to plough back into some further research and development activities. But getting back to the processing, the timesheets and summary of what was done and what was the results of the various experiments is very important. I found in my experience over the years in working with clients and actually being the key advisor on a few of them, is that a lot of the people working in research activities, the day-to-day activities that go on, are overseas students and residents or recent graduates who are doing a trip to Australia as their celebration of finishing their degree, going back home then to get back into serious work. Now, if they've been involved in an R&D project and the form was not completely filled in or brief details were not sufficient, and you get a tax audit down the track, you haven't got those people on hand to get them to sit there and give confirmation to a tax or Oz Industry investigator that they did what the form is saying they did, but they haven't included all the details. You need that done now on the assumption that that person might leave you tomorrow, and you need that documentation if you are successfully going to be able to claim the research and development benefit for the benefit of your client. What else is there on research and development? Why is it so important? What can lead then into the client saying, we wish to look at raising money. We've spent all of our money on research and development, and we can see some great potential opening up through this prototype that we've developed. Now, if they want to raise money, they need some very key ingredients first. They need a properly constructed business plan which really looks at the opportunities and then has a forward projection. And if they're going to try to raise capital, it needs to go forward for at least 3 years and be based on real-time information. They will need a marketing report evaluating the market opportunities. And normally that is best done by someone who is a marketing consultant. And some of them will be looking at the export opportunities. So they'll need an export marketing document. And both of those other two documents need to be completed before the business plan is completed, because it all dovetails in. And once you've got that, you can sit down and prepare the predictive accounting reports, the budgets, the key drivers, the cash flow forecasts, the projected balance sheet, the source and application of funds. And then you can have a real good discussion with the leadership team to make sure that they're adopting this budget and predictive accounting reports as theirs. I like getting them to sign off on it at the end. The leadership team signed off in this document, because then they'll have some ownership, because they've got the responsibility to implement what's required to enable this plan to be finalised. Now, that's the preliminary work. Oh, there's a bit more, isn't there? We need a valuation. What's this company worth? Now, that's a difficult question, but it needs to be answered. Because the next step is to be talking to a crowdsource funding intermediary to get their views on agreeing that they will sponsor this company to enter the crowdsource funding capital raising process. Now, the intermediaries have got the sole power on that. They've had that delegated by legislation from the Australian Security of Investment Commission. Even though I understand ASIC keeps a close eye on what's going on, they have the power. They've got to make up their minds whether the company has fulfilled the requirements of the legislation. You will need to make sure that the directors and leadership team understand what the legislation says, what they can do and what they cannot do, and very importantly, on what declarations they have to make. A comment that I always make to everyone: if one of the directors or leadership team, or any more, might be more than one, have been involved in any events that caused ASIC to issue action against them in the past, they need to be warned that that has to be declared. So I've had some people decide they don't want to be a director in this particular organisation, because that could lead to embarrassment, because that will be listed in the document. But that's up to your client and the director or leadership team member concerned. And then we will go through the process of working with the appointed intermediary to help raise the capital sum. Now, the capital sum can be up to $5 million in a 12-month period. The capital raising process from the time the intermediary says, go, I've admitted you to the crowdsource funding program, is 3 months to raise the capital. Many businesses really benefit by having an active web presence before they start on any of this, so that there's some knowledge in the community. Their employees can see this is our business on the internet, on their web page. You'd make sure their customers knew about it and their suppliers. And perhaps by making presentations at Chamber of Commerce meetings and other community-type organisations, your client has directed people to their website, whereby the story is unfolding. This is what we're doing. Now, they've got to be careful to protect their intellectual property, but there's a lot of other things you can say. So that when the intermediary gives the okay to start raising capital, there's a group of people that already know a fair bit about this little company, no matter where it is located in Australia. And that helps in the capital raising process. Now, it's a bit like being a public company. There is accountability and reporting. The legislation only requires the directors of a company that's raised capital under crowdsource funding to report once a year, but I recommend every couple of months. It's a great idea, because the company might have to go back and raise some more money next year, and this happens. So it's a good idea to have kept your original shareholders informed. They might be prepared to invest some more money, or they might be prepared to give endorsements and speak to their colleagues at the club or the pub or the bowls club or the golf club about what they think will be a great outcome. There are other government grants that you might like to consider that you should be putting in the pipeline. And you'd be working, and your team would be working with this client. Now, this all started from research and development, didn't it? The research and development activity got started, and you help the client through that process. So you're really starting to act as a chief financial officer for that client, guiding them through this process. And once you've got external investors, you've got to make sure that the financial accounts are getting prepared on a monthly basis, because there'll be board of directors meetings, which also should be held on a monthly basis, and they will be demanding up-to-date financial reports. There's a tax return to be done, of course, but the taxation side of it's become rather minor, hasn't it? In fact, I think it's minor all the time in lots of ways. It doesn't help your clients run their businesses. All of this will. So this is a great opportunity that an awareness, an enthusiasm, an attitude of let's go and do it is so important when it comes to helping your clients on research and development. Now, sure, some of those clients might grow and ultimately might gravitate towards a big four or a top 100 firm. That's life. But you've had this tremendous experience of working with that client. You can then use that knowledge, that skill, that know-how with other clients, can't you? And I think you will find that your talent that you have so much difficulty in attracting and then retaining will be very happy to stay in your organisation if you're offering these real accounting services for them, because it will be interesting. It will be challenging. And at times there might be some real deadlines to be met. Your team members will understand the process. They'll understand the communications that are necessary, the decision-making process, the reports to board of directors. It brings in a whole range of issues, which I think you'll find exciting and very interesting in this overall process. So within the ESS BIZTOOLS product package on research and development, which started this conversation, let me go back to it. What we have in our system is an introductory package, which is also merged into the overall package at the end. But we have a starter package that people that have never offered advisory services before or have been earning less than 5% of their income from, advisory services will find an interesting area to start. We have a research and development introductory section, and it's built around a flowchart. We have 13 flowcharts in the ESS research and development product package, but the first one explains the process. And it says, this is how it works. Research and development normally starts with an idea. And strange as it may be, a lot of people tell me it wasn't my idea and he's the boss, not the boss's idea. A young apprentice on the shop floor went to the foreman and said, why don't we make a little machine that will do that? I could design one. And if a 16 or 17-year-old apprentice says that, people should be having a good look at what's involved. So what the foreman would probably do is go and talk to his manager and say, look, the young lad out in the shop floor is suggesting we do a bit of research and we look at developing a product. And hopefully the boss will say, that's okay. And how about I allocate 2 other people to work with him, and we'll give them 2 days of work time to analyse it and come back up and tell us whether they think it's worthwhile. And one of them should be the project coordinator, because records need to be kept, even at that stage. Who worked on it, what hours, what were their findings? And then we come to a very quaint terminology which turns some people off, and that is prior art search or literature search. Now, this goes back a long time, this terminology, but it's checking to see whether someone somewhere else in the world has already registered a patent on what this idea is based on. Because if so, the Australian government's not going to fund your client to undertake further research, because they won't be able to patent the idea. And if they can't patent it, they probably can't commercialise it, because they'll be breaking someone else's patent if they've registered that in Australia. Now, not many SMEs can really undertake the prior art searches. They could start by going through the internet and make sure they keep any printouts they get off the internet and make sure they got a date on them as to when they undertook that research. But they could go to a patent attorney who will undertake that search for them, their experience in these type of tasks. And universities have sections that can do this type of work. So the key then is to find out what the lay of the land is. If we can't find that someone else has already got a patent registered at this date, and this is where the dates become very important, so we can then move on. That documentation is very important, because it might be a couple of years' time before the company gets an inquiry from Oz Industry or the tax office, looking at certain aspects of the claim that's been made. And they may be saying what research was done under the prior art search and what was the results. There needs to be a nomination of what the core activity is going to be in the process. This is what are we going to be undertaking to create new knowledge? Because that's what this whole process is about, creating new knowledge. And another quaint idea is the new knowledge is intended to be produced by this research. So we need to be able to clearly undertake that. And then we need to determine what the hypothesis or hypotheses are. The hypothesis is a statement that is either proven right or wrong by conducting an experiment. So we need to make sure that everyone's thinking this through. I think it's a good idea to then produce a research and development plan. This is a plan. We've got some templates on the plan in our system. Now, I should add that for a company with a turnover less than $20 million per annum, it's not necessary to produce an R&D plan. It is for all other applicants for R&D. But I think it's very advisable, because it sets the scene. It lets the whole team know that this is serious. And in the event of subsequent discussions with Oz Industry and with the tax office, the fact that a plan was prepared will add credibility to the project, that your client was really trying to seek the determination of new knowledge. It may become an issue. So we've now got a research and development plan. We should have, as part of the plan, we should then have a cost estimate, what all this is going to cost. And that should then be submitted to the company's board of directors for approval. That's important, because the research and development process, as advised by Oz Industry, indicates that it should be approved by the board of directors, and in larger corporations by a senior executive that has been nominated for this purpose. And again, it's great training for your team to be preparing a report to go to the board, even if there's only one director. But hopefully that director has a board of advice that's assisting him or her in their deliberations. They would be then preparing this report to go to them. At this stage, there's been no application for any approval. There's no necessity. But the company could have created some reasons for approvals. And the first one is if they want to have certainty that their expenditure is going to meet the requirements of the legislation, an application can be made to the tax office for an approval under what is called an advance finding. Now, every bit of information, so you really need the R&D plan if you're going to seek an advanced finding, because it sets out in detail for up to 3 years what you're going to do. What you've got to then make sure, though, that's really putting on the internal audit hat, is that is exactly how the client undertakes the project. Because if there's deviations, they may not get approved in the approval process. So this whole process of going through and looking at research and development creates some tremendous opportunities for your client to be able to start a process on a worthwhile pursuit for their business. And incidentally, there is a taxation benefit that they can obtain, and that is 43.5% of their legitimate research and development expenditure, which, as I've indicated at the beginning, can include team wages, of course, is the claimable allowance in this whole process. If the company is trading at a loss, they can get a cash reimbursement equivalent to the research and development claim paid by the tax office. But what it opens up is a whole range of potential opportunities for the client to develop a real product that's going to be worth money, that's going to add to the value of the intellectual property of this business. It might not be the end decision that everything's going to be produced by your client. They might decide to sell off the production and marketing rights in return for royalties. There's all sorts of structures that could be established once you get further down the track. But it all starts with research and development. If you don't assist your clients to undertake the research and development part of the project, I don't think you've got much chance of getting any benefit out of the ongoing stream of work activities, because they will have gone to someone else, and that other firm will make sure that they retain that client, especially when they can see those opportunities opening up in front of them. I would like you to think about this and think about how your firm reacts to someone walking in and asking about research and development. Do you sit them down and start talking along the lines I have today? Can you very quickly indicate to them that if they're a partnership, they will have to change, the business will have to change over to a company? Now, it could be a private company or an unlisted public company, but to a company to enable them to get the benefits. And that they will have to spend $20,000 on claimable expenditure before they can claim any of the taxation research and development incentive payment. Now, the $20,000 might be a real line in the sand. Some people might say, oh, we think it's only going to take $2,000 or $3,000. Well, it's not worth going through all that process. But a warning, I've seen people say $2,000 to $3,000 and found out later they spent $50,000 on the project. And so if they'd been a bit more alert about it, they could have got back, $24,000 odd from the tax office. Research and development is the creation of an idea, and it has the opportunity to incentivize SMEs to do things. It's an ideal deviation of a product that is definitely a diversification of services that your firm is offering. If you want to talk to me at all about research and development and the pathway that it can create for your firm, please don't hesitate to contact me. Send me an email, please, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and we will have a discussion. And incidentally, we have got a great end of financial year package available. We've got a 50% discount. Now, the research and development package is within the financial forecasting package of our system. The 12-month subscription, including GST, is around $3,950 for the 12 months. You get a whole range of information, a lot more than just research and development, but the research and development package is there. Now, this special promotion is available until the 8th of July. If you're interested, please go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, or give me a phone call, 0418 190 181. And I will be happy to guide you through the process. I hope to hear from you in the not too distant future. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye.